Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, young adventurers. Dylan here. And on today's podcast, I get to interview the awesome Heather Gallagher. She is the head X of technology for Burning Man. She's on the advisory board for Andromeda Entertainment. It is a tool for psycho-spiritual development. She does a lot in the world of augmented reality. And there's a lot of shared interests we have on sustainable cities and XR technologies and Burning Man and all that stuff. So I'm super excited to talk to her today. And so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Heather Gallagher.
Hi, hello. Dylan. Hi, everybody else. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. I'm glad to have you be here with us. And
it looks like you've had some interesting heroes and heroines, so I'm glad to be amongst them.
Yeah. Heroes and heroines. Heroin sounds very much like a drug, and it's hard not to say that without that connotation slipping into the field. Oh.
True story, but yeah. we'll still give our girls a little bit of time.
Heroes, all as honorable, all of them of the people, for the people, and it is a beautiful thing. You've got some awesome headphone bedazzleness going on right now. I'm just trying to understand, what is that?
Well, I decided very early on during this whole pandemic situation that if we were going to do this, let's have fun with it. So, this is my natural office environment anyway. But then I've got filters with the snap, this is a snap camera sparkle filter, which brings me to light. Yeah. Oh. And, I could have a cat on my head or a hat made out of toilet paper, but this is kind of more this is kind of my natural environment. And then these I recently got when my other headphones died. I've actually had a couple pairs, but yeah, these light up. This is gamer tech, man. If we're not going to have fun with this right now, when are we,
That is super epic. I realized just how much time I sat with my butt in the chair. So for a while it was like a brown wooden chair. And I'm like, why am I so uncomfortable with life? And then I realized, I'm clocking in some hours here. So might as well just get comfortable.
You actually look like you could go into orbit in that thing. I was going to ask you about that before. Yeah.
It's the black abyss. It was one of those things that I'm choosing without choosing. So I'm just going to go with nothingness, and it's the opt out of backgrounds. So,
good.
But I'm stoked to have you here, and yeah, I do get like a Burning Man-esque vibe from you when just looking at the thing. So let's start there. I've been 3 times. I would have gone a 4th, but as pandemics happen, wasn't able to make it. But you definitely are much more seasoned in the world of Burning Man. I'd love to first jump off with that. How did you get your start with being the head of technology? What was that journey like before I jump into other journeys?
I mean, I'll try and keep it brief because, of course, as with everything, it was a several-year process. I mean, I'd never heard of Burning Man, and then I landed in San Francisco and almost in the heart of it with Cacophony Society and all these people. They wouldn't stop talking about it, and I was like, people are kind of weirding me out, actually. They're like, come to Burning Man. I was like, maybe you should shut up. And eventually I joined all those people and did some things for the cafe, which is sort of the center
camp.
Center camp. The big structure in the middle, that's kind of like the town hall and that space. I did some things there for a couple of years and started taking pictures. That's how people know me as Camera Girl. That was my first job. And then meanwhile, I started volunteering. So I volunteered and photo edited the website, and I did my own photography and produced websites. This is way before Flickr and things like that, and digital cameras were just coming online. So I started volunteering and doing website things, and the whole time then I just kept poking. I was like, this is where I need to be. I'm available. Here's everything I can do. And after a couple of years of small projects and volunteering, was in the right time, in the right place. And they said, just, what do you want to do around here? And I was like, I'm going to take over so-and-so's job. And they're like, actually? Yeah, yes, you are. So I volunteered my way in is the short answer.
Well, so many times with a lot of things, like how do people get places is by giving, and Burning Man way in cultures, you give, and then, the playa provides and things come back and you get these unique, weird, unpredictable things that pop up. As Joseph Campbell, doors open that aren't available to anybody else because you're on that path. So I think that's super cool, but I'm sure it's been fraught with disaster and fires and electrical storms and all of that. What has been What have been some of the more hellacious stories? Let's start on a positive note that you've gone through with technology at Burning Man, because it's really, you're basically forcing humans, not forcing, but you're forcing the environment for humans to live in this environment, right? We don't belong in and say, hey, we are now here for X amount of time. So what's been some of those experiences you've had that made you appreciate some of the technology infrastructures that we have here?
Yeah. So my role, was the technology year round for all the office things and the fires that go on there, as well as then the event, where a lot of the fires there were scripted. So no need to panic. I'll tell you when to panic. I mean, things that, go smooth. I mean, it was such a long, gradual climb. When I came in, there was under a dozen paid staff and like 2 locations at the event that needed internet to sell tickets and a T1 line and things like that. And then jump ahead 17 years and we've got, ridiculously complicated wireless microwave point-to-point, network, 75 on-site customers. That's to run the city. And that was everything from internet connection to printers to really, really complex custom software solutions, that were going on behind the scenes to operate the event. So it's, the growth, just every single moment, every single year was a victory. On the tech side of stuff, I'll say, gosh, it was nice to never really have to worry about like search engine optimization. We had the opposite problem, which is that we're like kind of too popular. So every glitch, every ticket sale that, hit the fan, which there was definitely a couple, the whole world was going to know about it. So we weren't trying to get like people to pay attention to us. We were trying to make sure we didn't blow it. And given that a lot of the Burning Man Playa experience is about being unplugged, the good news is we weren't necessarily providing a lot of tech services to the participants, but gosh, it sure requires a lot of tech to make a city, of eventually 80,000 people run seamlessly. And hopefully most of that is behind the scenes and the things just scan and the things just work and you get in and get out and forget about tech, except those of us whose job it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really, I'm always fascinated by and really try to wrap my head around is there's like the hero stays alive long enough to become the villain. And in so much in Burning Man's culture is the unplug, disconnect, get away. But all of a sudden it became kind of this mecca for Instagram selfies and corporate advertisements and things like that to a degree. Right. And that's not that they actually do that. There's a strong culture there. But how do you balance out the success and popular of being that cool kid while trying to retain that I don't need to be cool kid. I don't need this. I don't need how do you balance out those two things?
It was and continues to be an ongoing effort. As people as cameras got smaller and smaller, as other people brought in cell towers. I mean, the organization itself was very much against that because we didn't want people to be, who wants to see everybody at Burning Man like this? This sucks, right? That's not Burning Man. Burning Man's like, yes, let's dance. But there was a moment when it was like, you can't beat this rising tide. What can we do to acculturate people? What can we do to remind people to actually drop into the experience? And then sure enough, of course, many folks try to capitalize on the sort of imagery that's there. And that was, something the organization protects very strongly because it's not the backdrop for insert your latest cool music video here. Like the people who made that, they made it for themselves or for the other people who are also co-creating together. And they didn't make a cool thing just so you could, kind of riff off of it. But it, became a constant process. And a lot of people in the community report things when they see it. Certainly there's been some big missteps by some big company types or things like that, where people, lawyers have had to do lawyer things. And then there's a lot of folks who are just yoga teachers who are sharing things, and you kind of have to pick your battles, right? Yeah. Is somebody doing something that's in the spirit? Are they making a point of crediting the art and the artists? Are they doing something that's in the spirit of the principles or the culture that you're trying to promote? Are they a big fish, or are they just a little fish? And is it obvious that they intentionally did things? I mean, they would catch people who would like set up elaborate productions just to shoot footage for things like their champagne companies, and those are the ones that got really big talking tos, and
Sure.
and set the standard for the whole community that it's not okay. It's not, it's there to experience and to enjoy and to celebrate, but it's not there to be your hype machine. But it's a constant conversation.
It is such a challenge because it's like, the live and let live vibe of Burning Man, as well as, but no, like, no, the no asshole policy, the no, like, you don't pee on the floor. I saw someone peeing at the playa, like on the ground, and then he just got snacked, like just someone just grabbed him, and I was just like, good. I'm glad that there's people doing that, and it's a weird, unique ecosystem. What about it? And we'll shift through this to other things that you do. It won't be the whole thing, but what about it do you think, like, what made it so successful? What makes people want to like go back to? I mean, a lot of people have difficulties growing communities, and it seems like Burning Man has a difficulty pushing people away from the community. So
you want to know what the secret sauce is?
Yeah.
I mean, of course,
I'm gonna put it in a bottle and sell it. That's what.
Yeah. Okay. Just don't use any Burning Man imagery.
Totally.
So, I mean, of course, we've talked about this time and time again. I mean, part of the secret sauce is that there's no one secret sauce, right? Mm-hmm. There's no prescription of thou shalt have this experience and thou shalt have this struggle and thou shalt take this away and you shall believe these things. Part of it is that it's left wide open so that whoever shows up, whatever they need, spiritually, emotionally, whatever at that time, that they're going to end up finding it, and they're going to take away and make their own meaning of it. And we always said, I'd say people would show up for the party and they'd walk away with a WTF just happened in my life. It turns out it's the biggest personal transformation boot camp ever, but that one doesn't really sell tickets. Welcome to the biggest personal boot camp ever, and dust. But so it is because so many people showed up, found their way through it on their own. Let's say every week at the event is its own hero's journey, right? If you can get your 10 up, survive, and get out the other side, intact with a relationship and or having fed yourself and, kept your mind together, it's a struggle. The struggle is real, right? But if you come out the other side of that, inevitably people are changed. And sometimes, and 99.9% for the better. And every once in a while, that better comes after they've had to dismantle their life and build it again. And when people are touched that deeply and their lives are profoundly changed that much, and when they see such absolute awe-inspiring beauty, as well as some really random shit. Are we allowed to cuss? But there's so much there that when people are just touched that deeply, they want to tell two friends, right? So Burning Man never advertised. If there was like an ad in like 1996 in some, teeny magazine in the Bay Area, but there's never been advertising. There's only word of mouth, sign up for the newsletter. There you go. Like entirely, right?
I've only had the same type of experience of the onboarding to the Burning Man of all my friends like, you'd really like Burning Man. You should go. And I'm like, for years, like, no, that's what. And try to explain to me. They're like, it's dusty, it's sandy, it's hot, it's this, but it's really cool. You burn stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. But then you go and you experience it, and it does have a transformational kind of effect. One of the things I do think that's really powerful about it, and is there's a freeness in it that's like everyone's like, hey, come play with me. And then you go, no, I don't want to play with you. Like, okay. And then someone else, you want to play with me? You're like, okay. And then you go. And so there's kind of like this Joseph Campbell, there's called the Buddha's Golden Story, where you have the golden Buddha and you shed away that. It's basically your inside self. And we constantly armor up, protect ourselves from lives. But I feel like in Burning Man, it allows us to kind of let that inner child be free, whether that child is, off learning about neuroscience at some interesting talk or running naked down the streets with sand between their toes. It's
both.
Yeah. And that person's probably running onto stage to go give the presentation.
They're probably the neurosurgeon who's about to give the talk. Yeah, I know that guy actually.
Yeah, I've met him before.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the other thing is it's a permission engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so much of society programs us into our boxes and our cubicles and our roles and our you should do this and you should do that and the world, you're born these fresh slates and then the world puts all this context on you and then expects you to stay there. And then, the true growth comes when you shake off all that BS. And Burning Man's a place where you can go and it's a level playing field. It's different. People who are billionaires can go just be weirdos in tights, I know that guy too. And, and or people who are, they can go, the entire context is make-believe, so you can reinvent yourself however you want to. And some of that might be more make-believe, and some of that might actually be finding more about who you really are. But you have permission to play, permission and encouragement to push the button and to put on the silly outfit and to dance and to do all the things that we naturally would have done as kids until people put us in boxes as, adults and said, don't do that. You
gotta get a real job.
A permission engine. It's a permission engine.
Permission engine.
Yeah.
For you in particular, I mean, how has it affected your journey? What has been some lessons and takeaways for you? I mean, I know it's like, hey, tell me your 17 years worth of insights and
nothing.
Yeah. Buy more Starbucks.
I got a lot of boots, man. No, it became a place. I mean, I was rock and roll before I was Burning Man. I had friends who were musicians, so I'd always learned to really surround myself with the just most creative crazies you can. It's always better to be with the band or part of the show than it is to be just a consumer. Though some shows are great to consume, but what it became was when you learn there that you can show up and author yourself for a week. What am I going to wear? What am I going to do? Let me just relax my grip on everything and let the synchronicity and the magic unfold. And it starts to do it, phenomenally. The playa synchronicity is a thing. And then what it does is it teaches you to have not just faith in humanity, but faith in the universe and faith in yourself, that that you're not necessarily just a victim, or you're not, the life isn't happening to you, but that you can shape it, and that you can shape it in delightfully playful, funny, colorful, creative, and brilliant ways. And that eventually it becomes, well, I can't do anything else, right? At first it starts with, oh, we can play this space. And then suddenly you cross over at some point and you're like, you know what? I can't play any other way. And so there's just an authoring of your own existence, your own looking, your way of being, your own attitude, your own approach, your own, playfulness, where you learn how to really take the reins on your world and decide how you want to steer. And you don't get that everywhere.
Yeah, no, everyone else is like, for most other societies, like, okay, welcome to our institution, school, government, job, business. These are the rules we play by, and it's basically, it's very much nerfed in a lot of ways for their protection and for whatever things might be. But in Burning Man, it's very much there are no rules. You do you, and if we come together, great. If we don't, because try to find somebody at Burning Man is always a joy. Meet me here on Wednesday at 2:00. At K and 2:30 or whatever. The chance of that person actually being there, it's so limited. So, but that
three words you never want to hear at Burning Man. I'll be right back.
No. I've come across friends and it's like, oh my God, there you are. I mean, like, you exist. I'm so happy. But yeah, no, you're right. That's it. There's why is that? Why do you think it is that, like, Burning Man gives you permission, but nowhere else does? Like, is there a way? I mean, is there a way to construct a sustainable city that's got that energy outside of that? Does that only work in a 2-week cadence once a year?
Well, what I've done, and what, when I say that moment when you cross over, is I'm a portable permission machine. I've just given myself permission. You don't go around the world with purple hair and dreadlocks and, without having granted yourself and everyone around you some permission to, like, bring it. And eventually, you realize as long as you're paying your taxes and not hurting people and don't touch children, as long as you're like good people, that there's no reason that you shouldn't, bring it and be more colorful. And I like to say wear the right costume for the party. If for some reason I'm appearing, at City Hall, actually, I bring all this to City Hall in San Francisco. They love it. But, there's a moment in time when you put on the more professional looking things and you play to the right crowd. You wouldn't want to show up in court, with like a tutu on. Bad move. But who says permission has to come from outside?
That's fair. Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that everyone's like, oh, just be yourself, but like, don't get too big, don't do whatever. And like a lot of times, like, let's say family or friends or other people in your life that know you a certain way, but maybe I want to go as the name Sally from now on, and that's who I want to be, right? But then I have basically my entire societal structure going, no, you're Dylan. I know you your entire life, and that's who you are. So stay in that box, right? And so, yeah, you can give yourself permission, but there's also this weird, your identity is anchored down by the people around you in your life. And so how do you break free of those identities? And maybe this is just my own self question for myself and then for reflecting, but looking down at that, it is one of those difficult challenges. I haven't seen very other places where like, I don't care where you were, any other place, come here and be completely different. Right. And I was trying to see like, is that replicatable outside of the like bonfire that is Burning Man?
It is. It makes it possible because it is a world that is temporary. Certain parts of Burning Man wouldn't necessarily work 365. Our founder, the late Larry Harvey used to say, he didn't want to necessarily be responsible for, a thing if the event happened for longer than a week and a half or whatever, that, some of the magic that's there with that container and the struggle and the logistics and the heat, which kind of gives you enough roughness to then really rise through your hero's journey to survive out the other end. Some of that is only so, it only after a couple of, let me clear that. After that, a few weeks of that, it becomes a different kind of problem. And so that's what the whole thing became about, is what are the principles? How do these events and communities form all over the world? And what are the qualities so that they can start creating that in small places, right? Like those regional events all around the globe and communities. And the 10 principles were teased very reluctantly out of Larry years and years ago, when people are like, how do we do this? And he was like, I'm not going to make a doctrine, I'm not going to write things on stone tablets. And everyone's like, tell us. And it's like, okay, sort of. And that was done to at least help identify the qualities and the principles that help shape the main experience, so that when people wanted to create communities or events, and if they wanted to be officially affiliated, that they at least knew some of the things that were in place, and that sort of was the definition of that space, which makes little pockets of permission everywhere. But again, that's just an event, not just a weekend or a camping trip. The true part is then when you start to weave it into how are you weaving that into your daily life, and how are you showing up civically, locally, disasters, arts, local creative culture, and doing it every day, because that's the important work, not if you can do it for a weekend.
Yeah, it's the can you shift from a moment in time to a way of life, and that's a big challenge.
But so worth it.
No, it's a whole, like, Bushido way of life type of thing, that if you can truly be absolutely free with who you are and be a good person and live in that and live in the moment, and then it is a utterly freeing experience. The challenge is that we're never one thing. We're a balance of things. We are a spark that only lives in the present moment, but we're also concerned with the past and the future. There's always like things, and we are an individual self, but we are a part of the collective whole. It's this weird thing. We all want to be autonomous and free, but we all want to be accepted by the tribe, right? And so it's like, how do you balance out those equations going into this?
You run around with a tribe who's just as multidimensional and wacky and fun as you are. That's what you do. And then the ones that are maybe a little 2D or a little less, invite them to come along and play too. You try and level up everybody's game, or at
You
least
call
give
them
them
2D.
the invitation, right?
Yeah. You called them 2D.
2D. Yeah, that's what it's now that I've been working in spatial technologies and things like that. It's like, oh yeah, there's like 2D tech, there's 2D people, the ones who kind of just do one thing and that's their one thing. And I'm like, I live in a multidimensional world and I'm a multidimensional girl.
I was almost going to start to do some poor karaoke to that, but the looking at you said you've gotten into a lot of this XR technology and that stuff. What was the shift from the technology at Burning Man and what you're doing there to then jumping into XR technology? Can you talk to me a little bit about that transition on how you got into that space and why you're in that?
Yeah. I mean, doing technology, doing all this for Burning Man, what a phenomenal thing, and we're family forever connected, but after 17, 19 years of doing it, then various evolutions and things, it was time to move on. And so I spent some time looking out in the world, literally you look out from there, you're like, what on earth could be as remotely interesting as this circus, and truth be told, even though the culture and the event is very innovative from a technology standpoint, I was spending a lot of time trying to bring people just into some of the 90s tech, in certain corners of deep infrastructure and things like that. So as a technologist who could see that so much, it wasn't necessarily that, technology is not the core function of the organization. And so I spent a lot of time looking around and I came up with, okay, virtual reality, augmented reality, creative technologies, and a bit of transformative technology. Those were literally the pillars of places that I thought were interesting. And especially with VR and AR, I mean, to me, this is and I've given keynotes on this, this is the new canvas for humanity, right? Much like Burning Man, Black Rock City, people went out there 30 years ago-ish, and they saw this blank canvas and they said, anything is possible here. Well, I had that experience, but then what I saw now was this blank digital canvas, much like the internet was 20 and 30 years ago. Now we have this multi-dimensional digital light-filled playgrounds, and it's uncharted territory. And we get to play with light and holograms and immerse human beings in experiences and content and story. And this is uncharted. This is the new frontier. And I like to play there.
Love it. No, I agree. I'm being someone who's had my mind blown several times at Burning Man and also in virtual reality and augmented technology. There is a magic that creates this giddy excitement that makes you want to go deeper. For you, did you have a magic moment, whether with VR or AR or anything, where you're like, your mind was blown? You're like, oh my God, that was cool. Is there a moment in time that you can think of that kind of gave you that feel of the magic?
Yeah. Now, granted, what I really fell in love with, I'd done a little bit of VR. In fact, people had bringing virtual playa projects to the office for a decade, so that you see it, you've seen it for years of like, there's really a here, a there when people can recreate or have 3D video scans of a thing and you can be immersed in it. But the technology that really I fell in love with, at least that lured me out enough, to go jump on board and do that for a couple of years, was immersive augmented reality. And most people have not had that experience yet. So this company, the last startup I was with, Enclu, was working with the HoloLens and was producing things for consumer entertainment, and literally taking these things that were designed for enterprise and putting people into fantastical worlds. And that feeling of, I'm in a headset, but you can still see the world around you, right? So you're not disassociated. You can talk with the people next to you. But now I'm also amongst and interacting with responsive holographic things, and I can make sparkles in the air, and I can touch mushrooms and make them wiggle, and I can lay on the floor and look up under a thing, and there's art from my friends, and you can play with it in new ways. It was as close as I have ever experienced to being in the heart of Black Rock City at night, right? One of the most beautiful things on the planet, with everything in motion and light and beauty and all this, I drink it in. And now here was something that was absolutely poetic and magical. to literally be interacting with light. And now there's other things like immersive VR with where there's smell and heat and other things that they'll pipe in, and you can be a stormtrooper, and that is wonderful. But something about bringing the digital realms into the human space and being able to interact with it, it's just beautiful. And it literally, if we've had like show guys at conferences come through a big digital garden and come out the other side and be like, I think I just had a spiritual moment, like tears. I mean, I love that. And tears running down their face, and you're like, yeah, like, it's beautiful. Let's play.
You can give spiritual moments inside VR and AR and in terms of things, and you can whatever you want to call, for lack of a better term, but where your perception shifts on a fundamental level and you feel transformed from that. I don't know the right verbiage behind it, but when you're talking about, I remember coming out in the playa and going out and then for being inside a closed tent, inside all darkness, like, okay, let's go outside. And then you go outside, and then there's just thousands of colors and light and everything, and the whole sea is moving, the starlit sky, and it's like, and I have a theory about this, which I feel like, what is awe? The word awe. And I think what awe is, and by the way, this is total bro science. I don't know if this is 100% right or not, but I'm just going to say what it meant to me was I think there is a rendering issue that happens on your eyes. And I think what happens, what I mean like this is, like, when you try to spin up something that's got a lot of rendering, like on your computer, if you're trying to write high quality video cards, you need a stronger graphics card, like a 1080 or, whatever that graphics card might be. But when you're going from like no visibility to all of a sudden you go in and you're taking in all this data. Now, say it's millions of points of light going across you in a twirling bike stratosphere, cosmos of bikes going around in a circle. Your brain goes, because like trying to render, and that is like the awe. Same thing how if Yosemite, you're going through the little tunnel, you come out and you see this giant landscape, and you're trying to take this all in at once. You get this sense of rendered awe, and I'm wondering, and that has a spiritual transformational effect on that. There's so much beauty, it like reaches in and touches your soul. And I don't know if you had any thoughts around that, but it was just one of the top of minds when you're talking about that.
No, it's beautiful. And I know that moment. I mean, my favorite thing to do, and still is, to go out in the middle of Black Rock City, just amongst everything and things on fire and blinky lights and and just ground down and just like suck it all in, like right here. And like literally I can feel like the energy pulsing through my body and down into the ground. And I try to do that every time I find a good blinky light show, honestly, because it's there. But, I always say it makes me wish I had more eyeballs.
Yeah, totally.
Like when something is so gorgeous that you honestly wish you had more eyeballs, and in some way, because it's filling you so much, that you wish you had an extra heart to put it all in, almost like a spare leg. You wish you had, you could just, how do I load this into the system and tap into it when I need to? But to talk about awe, I've done some research on it, but it's she science for certain, not bro science, but it is, there's science and studies about it. And awe comes when you're are kind of presented with something that takes you out of yourself. Mm-hmm. Right, that may, and hopefully in such a moment of delight and things that you literally are connected with something bigger than yourself, and are touched by some power. In that case, it's the power of this collective creative light-filled blinky bike rodeo, and or the human creativity that goes into it, but something that can literally take your breath away, and or takes you from the experience of I to the experience of wow. And it kind of frees us from the burden of being an identity and an ego and all that, and if it can pull you out of that into that space where you're just really just in wonder of our existence in the universe. I think that's that gorgeous moment, where yogis have learned to surf, and to find that in every waking moment is the whole point.
If you could ride that storm, the challenge with that, they said, like, because that's like living in like kind of the deepest sense of flow, but otherwise you might become like might get lost in that flow. Otherwise, you'd be just being your whole life be spinning around in circles, going everything,
Yeah,
know.
you got to drink deeply from the well when you come across it, but then you
Yes.
still got to do the laundry.
Yeah. You got to fill up. You're like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's only as good as if you can continue to, like, do good on the planet, because otherwise we'd just be wandering around with la 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 la, and that's not that productive for what this is a different playground we get right now. But drink deeply.
Cyclical for sure. What
Yeah.
would you, since you have so much experience just in the world of the brain dynamics side and also on XR technologies, how would you, I mean, what would be your principles or top of mind thoughts around designing these types of experiences? What are some of the recipe elements? What goes into the soup? Carrot, a potato? What makes these types of experiences, do you think?
Yeah, a lot of the good principles for just design that are good in the real world, like feng shui, right, and things like that, are essential when you're doing virtual things. Now, you can also get into psychedelic, ungrounded la, but where we are right now, which is great, certainly let's go on those rides too, but where we are right now, most people have barely stepped in, or have never stepped in, or have maybe put a toe into these digital dimensions. And I think it's important to realize that when you're encompassing humans with technology, or it feels like they're being encompassed in technology, if you're bringing them into a digital world, or you're bringing your digital world to them, that it needs to be done with the utmost respect, because this immersive tech and things like this, you're affecting people in deep things, right? Deep memories, childhood things. You're the full spatial awareness. It's not like if you watch a horror movie on a small screen and you can kind of keep your hand on the cat and be like, this is just a movie. It's like you are really taking people into new worlds, and it should be treated with the absolute respect, and that you're given the opportunity to present imagery to people. Let's choose wisely. I saw an article this week, or somebody said finally they think VR is going to get out of the zombie shooter thing, and I'm like, yes, because that has zero interest to me. But light-filled gardens, wonderment, meditative practices, helpful tools, like, bring it. But why would I, like, there's enough horror and pain in the world. Sometimes you want to maybe tell a story and you need to illustrate a painful point or teach people not to be jerks. But you always want to use this, to lead people towards good, and to have them feel affirmed as humans, not the other way around.
I totally agree with you. The challenge with us being humans and having the power of choice, and also us being inherently lazy, is that the fact that we're both, right? We want to be heroic, we want progress, we want achievement, but also we want it as easy as possible and spoon fed in our mouth. We want a warm bath. We enjoy the benefits of after the achievement, but we don't like the sacrifice to get there. So the zombie shooter is an easy way to get an effect. It's scaring people. And full transparency, I've done horror hackathons. I've ran a number of virtual reality hackathons, and I've done a couple of horror hackathons. It's easy. And the Schadenfreude, harm joy you get from seeing the pain in others, is alive and well in the gaming culture. And it's because, things like Doom and other things have it's really easy to play to base emotions. That's why sex and violence will sell forever. It's like speaking to the reptilian brain. The other challenges, but I do believe that virtual reality, the point of virtual reality and these other types of technology, is really to allow us to become the dungeon masters of our own lives and create our full potential. And I truly believe that. It's just much harder. And it's like, well, do you want to laugh your butt off and watch Netflix all day, or do you want to get out and try to make the world a better place? And it goes, can I have both? That's
the great myths of the world, the ancient Hindu tales, all these epics. There are violence, there's struggle, there is evil, there are bad things in the world, and that without the darkness, the light would not shine so bright. Mm-hmm. Right. And these are part of humanity, and something I would never suggest people censor it. But engage with it limited, and to be aware of what you're doing, and to maybe not capitalize on it as so much. And the other thing is also just baby steps. We were creating holographic worlds for people, and we had in our minds and documents, multi-layer. I mean, we were doing game design, right? Multi-layer world. How do we throw this all this? It could have been an entire playthrough universe. And I was like, yes, but most people who are walking in the door right now, this is holographic experience number one.
Yeah.
And you just let's keep super baby steps. Let's keep it safe. Let's keep it simple. Get them in a couple hand gestures. We're not going to throw the whole menu of tricks and tips and techniques and toys, because most people need to assimilate this, because it can be a bit of a, are we in a simulation? Like you're talking about piercing through realities, right? Because now there's new worlds that I'm in and new worlds that are in my world, and it might trigger some things, and you kind of want to give folks ease them in, and then when you bring them back, make sure you're doing something respectable for it.
It sounds like everything you're saying is interchangeable for extended reality or Burning Man. It really does. I'm hopping from both sides of the fence as you're talking about this, and you're totally right. We are literally designing worlds. We are digital gods that create a landscape of our own choosing, and we can put people through this. And because of that, comes a lot of responsibility. With these technologies that you're creating, the augmented reality, I know you're a part of the Andromeda Entertainment. We can talk a little bit about this. What excites you most about this technology and having it being used for good? Is there any certain pieces or areas that you are excited about the technology that's here now, or maybe a couple of years out?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much cool stuff happening. There's so much cool stuff, and I know you've had Skip Rizzo, I think, on, and he's such a wise man and doing so many things for therapy, right? So people who have experienced true horrors in the world, military, whatever, now using it for PTSD. A lot of folks are now looking at how can this become, partnered with psychedelics for psychedelic therapy, in clinical appropriately, formats. And I think those are great current uses. Even Andromeda, as a dance game, so it's about embodiment and physicality. And sometimes I go downstairs and do a lunchtime dance break, and I'm grooving, and and I'm having a great time, and I'm having a workout. But I don't think of it that way. I think of it like I'm dancing and grooving and having a good time. Things that are coming now and/or online have to do with social gathering in these digital spaces, right? I don't know if you went to the virtual Burning Mans. I went through all of that like a great explorer should. And some of the worlds are still up. I literally was in a happy hour, in Altspace a few days ago, and this is, was a thing that wasn't exactly like Burning Man, but it was close enough that a bunch of us were having a great time, including staff members flying around a virtual version of Burning Man, literally next to a friend of mine who's in another state, but we're both in our basement in our headsets. Now, this is where it gets interesting, is when we can be together in these worlds and do things and have crazy wackadoodle adventures, just like we might do if we were together in person. And even some of the things that are coming online now, like some of what Microsoft just announced, there's some of their capabilities, basically is like a meshing of Altspace and the HoloLens using the avatar pieces of it. So imagine within a couple of years, we could have a virtual concert. People are being captured volumetrically, and performers are being sent into a virtual world. People from all over could plug into that with a headset and have a concert. They could be hanging out with their buddies next to each other. And at the same time, people could possibly be just having the holographic augmented reality version of it and all be hanging out together. So we could be gathering at a virtual event, some of us in a full immersion, some of us in an augmented version, in either avatars or volumetric someday, sharing experiences, that barely exist. I mean, we're getting into some seriously reality bending stuff. It's groovy. It's really cool. And I'm excited to see where this goes.
A billion %. I mean, being in virtuality for a number of years, it always feels like, especially in the development space, it feels like you're building a town in the desert, being like a train's a coming, right? But now it's here, with the new headsets and the new technologies and all the ones that are coming out. It's like you put it on, it's good, and there's people in there, and it still can be a little wild west. But that social connection is super duper powerful inside the space. It's not 100% fidelity rich and you have all that stuff, but it's enough to have an amazing time with people, and where you can lose yourself in the moment and forget that you're, your avatars, and you're actually jamming out to the music, or you're singing or dancing or shooting zombies together.
Same group of people who would normally be standing around at a party, like, talking smack and having cocktails. Here we are again, except everyone's in headsets around the world. Like same circus, different monkeys, or
Have you had a moment, because there's been a couple of times with me where I've lost myself in social VR situations and things like that, where I was just like, wow, that was so fun, and I got that thrill of being next to my friend. Do you have a moment that you can recant of some impactful social experience that you've had like that with XR tech?
So I was fortunate enough to be invited in early to a lot of the early worlds for the virtual Burning Man, as the multiverses were getting built. Just because of because I mean, it's like the intersection of everything that I am, right? And I knew people doing it. Yeah, so I'm grateful for that. And so I went in, the one that was in Altspace, I got invited in like back in like April or May, or something super early, while they were just scratching things together. And I'd never been in Altspace before. Finally got my Quest out of the box, things like that. and within 5 minutes, I was standing in on the temple, right, listening to an artist talk, who was they were kind of bringing in early sneak preview folks and talking about what was happening and what the temple project was going to be. And I'm standing next to this guy who's been giving me a tour because I showed up late because of the headset issues or whatever. And we're standing there, and he's like, a friend of mine just died. And I was like, wow, a friend of mine just died. Turned out we were talking about the same dude.
Whoa.
So 5 minutes into the virtual Burning Man social, experiment space, there I was having an actual, authentic human connection, playa synchronistic moment. And it turned out we both knew him. Actually, that guy had been on the Andromeda board.
Wow.
And may he rest in peace, Boz. But so skip ahead a couple of days, I'm on a Zoom call with another friend, and the same guy's name comes up, and I was like, I just met him in VR. And then we're on this crazy Zoom adventure, like a couple hours later, the guy's like, get back on. And I was like, it's like 2 a.m. on a Saturday, man, it's pandemic. And he's like, get on. And I get on, and he's gone and gotten this guy on a Saturday night and pulled him onto a Zoom with us. So now I've met somebody in VR. We had an honest to goodness, connective human moment. Turns out he knows a friend. Now we're having a Zoom thing, and the next thing you know, it's 2 a.m. I'm laying on my bed with two guys, and this new guy is playing the piano because he's one of those people, right, who builds virtual worlds and plays plays the piano. And I was like, that is just another wackadoodle Burning Man adventure stretched over form, media, immersion tech, remote tech, and what a beautiful thing. And I knew then, I was like, this is going to work. It's already working. This is possible, right? Isn't that a great story?
You felt the magic. And that weird cosmic synchronicity where you come together, and just how the playa provides, you get that magic. It does sometimes feel that we are living in some sort of virtual video game to an extent, because things do line up, things happen where it's like, what are the chances that you'd meet that person, that you'd both know the same people, that you'd have an interconversation out of the billions of people that come together? It's a really interesting thing. Do you have any do you have spiritual beliefs around this? Is this a technological hedonism, or what is it? What's your personal beliefs on this issue? Just curious, because all the synchronicity stuff.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I've done a lot of study of different esoteric traditions and things like that, and what I have learned and what has been proven to me time and time again is that synchronicity and these beneficial opportunities exist all around us all the time. And what you need to do, is stop holding on so to everything and trying to control and force, manipulate everything so much, to loosen your grip on everything a little bit and let it flow, that it helps to have a clear vision and an intention of what am I trying to do or manifest, or even just put it out there in the world. Gee, I'd like an apple, and but then what you have to do is use your acuity to sort of look around and be like, oh, well, if I apply myself just enough in this direction, or if I make that one phone call, or if I put this thing out into the world, I'm not forcing it, but I'm at least kind of putting some energy and intention towards things I'm trying to manifest or whatever. And then when the universe answers, when somebody walks in and hands you an apple, I wish somebody was here to hand me an apple, but sometimes that stuff happens.
I started looking for an apple right now.
That's a whole other story. The apple thing is a whole other story. But when it happens, when somebody turns the corner and hands you the thing, or when you need to take a second and you need to recognize it, kind of celebrate that, thank it, and then you learn to steer by it. Like, oh, well, I was looking for this, this showed up. It showed up 3 times. Okay, it's knocking on my door. I know that that's the way I should go. And so what you do is you learn that the synchronicity, the universe is always trying to give us tools and options, but you kind of got to learn to surf it, and honor it and recognize it, and then it just starts to flow. Right? It's when you're trying too hard. There's a lot of people who want to manipulate a situation, or maybe trying to connect the dots a little too hard. There's gentle intros, and then there's trying to push it, and that always feels awkward. But if you kind of just learn to surf it and celebrate it, it'll just keep going and going.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean by that. It's a balance of those two. Of like, I have my end destination of what I want, my intent, and then I'm just gonna kind of let everything slip and slide, and I'll go with the flow, kind of like a ship sailing into the wind. It kind of goes back and forth and zigs and uses that as a propellant versus like just straight brute force in your way, because then it feels like that seems a little painful.
You got there, but you kind of were a jerk along the way. Well, yeah. Burning Man was where I learned to trust synchronicity. Right? Because, and there is a whole story about, apples and this and that, because the playa provides was a thing. Yeah. And you learn that there's no such thing as a straight path, and that, along the way, like you said earlier, someone's like, hey, you want to play? You're like, no. Somebody else is like, you want to play? And then the third time you're like, okay, you want to play? And then what you realize is the thing that you thought you were going to get way over there, the person that you needed to talk to was right here. And suddenly, the CEO of the company that you were thinking about out in the real world is now giving you a pedicure and has become your new best friend, because you just sort of said yes to something the universe was asking you for. Now, your mileage may vary, but right?
You're right. It's weird that you're like, I couldn't have planned this. I couldn't have planned this vibe, and you go through it. And that's the thing, is if the same thing is true with, and that's why I feel like there is a microcosm of what happens in Burning Man, which happens in real life, what happens in XR technology, is the intention and the will. So if the intention and the will is like, look, I want to use this technology to help transform people for the better. You're like, okay, it's like, okay, well, show me your 18-month business plan. And what are you going to be doing on month 9 in terms of, like, I don't know. I just want to help people. I want to go that way. I want to go in that direction. How does that tie in, or does that tie into, and I love the philosophy of it. How does that tie into the Andromeda being on the board there? And is there like personal view alignments with that, with like what you stand for, and that's why you're on that board, and that resonates with that kind of journey? Or how do they all sync up together?
I mean, first of all, to go back, yes, we can't just live in flow state, and we can't just rely on little baby miracles. You got to do the business plan, and sometimes just take the random phone calls, right? And Andromeda creates immersive experiences that are meant to evoke the flow state. And so in addition to a meditative app that responds to vocalization, and the dance app, they also did some work with Android Jones, who's working on one of his gorgeous VR project. And so we had a lot of alignment around what they were trying to bring to the world in terms of these self-care entertainment is what they called it. And they were, then I'd known the founder for years and things like that. So we hit it off, and I was kind of their spirit animal. And what they're doing, I was creating experiences that feel good for humanity to have. Yeah. And so we're absolutely in alignment with that. And they've done some of their own experiments with holacracy, and I was like, really, how's that going? But they know what they're doing. I mostly just to do a lot of cheerleading and occasionally ask the hard questions, but it's sort of like once you put that out in the world, that's what you want to publish.
Yeah.
Then you start to attract that.
What is it? Holacracy?
Holacracy. That's a sort of organizational governance where it's, instead of people having sort of like a hierarchy structure and really rigid job descriptions, there's sort of people kind of self-nominate the roles and things that they want to take on, and theoretically everything gets covered and it all works out. Your mileage may vary for certain on that.
That's in theory, it works great, and maybe there's some sort of hybrid structure to that. I know Valve's tried that, and other people, in terms of just the will of the people, whatever you want to do. But then it's like, well, nobody wants to do this one thing, and that's the challenge of those blended environments. In Burning Man, like, you have a group, you like, just show up and make things happen. Yes. And there is a gigantic structure of people that allow that to happen, that you can just show up and just camp. It's like, well, did you get the permits? How did you make those tickets happen? What about that guy standing at the gate? So, okay. So then, spirit animal, just curious about the spirit animal bit. Do you envision yourself as a certain type of spirit animal, or is it just the embodiment of like love and technology?
Well, I mean, for me, it's whatever the right spirit animal is for the party I'm at, right? Sometimes it'll be a unicorn, sometimes it'll be a peacock, sometimes it'll be a unicorn peacock. I haven't actually done that, but I could do that. I'll be right back.
When you're talking about, I believe it. Actually, when you're talking about that, one thing that made me think about, you're like, peacock, unicorn, peacock. In my mind, it just jumped into the areas, the NFTs.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. I totally know what you're talking about. This has been a fun topic lately.
Yeah. So just anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's non-fungible tokens. And would you like to, Heather, explain just a little bit of what it is and how it could possibly relate to a peacock unicorn?
I'm not certain about the last one, but I mean, and NFTs are unique digital assets. Yeah. So it can be anything that is digital, like an audio recording, or a digital piece of artwork, or a 3D model, or somebody made one out of their first tweet, which are then hosted into a blockchain technology. So they are assigned a unique number, just to keep it simple, and people are now able to purchase these, and sometimes for really, really large amounts of money. If you ask me, $30,000 for a Gucci dress, or you could buy an Android Jones piece of art. So in a way, these digital costumes, artwork, etc., memorabilia, moments, anything that can be digitized can be assigned and made into an asset that people, then collectors, buy. And it's both inspirational and brilliant and insane at the same time, because people are spending a lot of money for something that's really just a bunch of data assigned to a hashed index thing on a crypto world. So it's phantomware, right? It barely exists except in a conceptual realm, but yet the people who are doing this, I think, are like people like you and I, who can see the digital future and believe in it and have faith in it, and are investing in the future where the digital assets have as much of this, not more, meaning than some of the physical things that we have. So it's a super interesting space. What's your take on it?
No, great. No, you're totally right. What you're talking about is, I think of them as digital baseball cards.
Yeah.
In a sense of that people, it just is a thing that you collect, and people find value in collecting that thing. And to answer is it more valuable in terms of real life stuff or digital stuff? My niece and nephew would totally agree that digital is more like they're all about Minecraft. And if because they want Minecraft and other Roblox and things like that. And so, but they want to be able to have those digital items. They want those digital assets. They want to be able to them, it's more important to have those digital assets for them and their friends inside that landscape than it is like, on the outside at all. So I guess the one thing that I struggle with understanding with the NFTs and really trying to wrap my head is like, it seems like buying art for art's sake versus producing some sort of valuable asset, like in terms of a functional, like a something that's you're not getting a digital screwdriver, for lack of a better term, right? I know there's nothing that I can really other than doing it for art's sake. And so that's my only thing is beyond the sheer collecting baseball cards for the sake of collecting baseball cards. I would love to see it. And I have no idea how this would work. How would you be able to have it create something of value, something that would be other than its own inherent valuable? How would you make it into something that is, beyond just an art asset that's digitally traded? But I don't know. And maybe
I mean, I fully appreciate as a Halloween baby and costume girl and 20-year burner who's got I got a lot of costumes, man.
Yeah.
And I love them in the physical space, but let's face it, we haven't used any of them in a year and my closet's full. But as we're now showing up in digital worlds, I'm definitely one of those people who's like, yeah, I'll give you a couple bucks a month so I can have access to things to make my avatar look cool. Because look at me, man. Like I'm gonna dress up for this party for certain. And but that's a functional-ish thing. I mean, it's decorative. It's it's not necessarily a tool, but I understand when it comes to art. I think some of it is just, are people fans of the work or the creator? Yeah. And they want to have access to a thing and say they own it, be it, a little audio snippet from their favorite rock star or their psychedelic painting friend or whatever. They just want to lay claim to it. I mean, I even went in and, I bought like some blockchain versions of the house that I live in, basically just because I didn't want anybody else to have it. I was like, this is kind of weird, but like, get off of my yard. I'm just going to buy up the whole little neighborhood here and sit on this.
And I get like an NFT hose and just spray them. Get off my lawn, youngin'.
Because who knows? You never know which of these is going to become something else that is built upon in a digital space. But some of it is just fun. Yeah. Some of it is potentially speculative, and some of it is really curious.
It is, and the thing is, you're right. I mean, part of it is, do you buy the art because you respect the artist? Do you buy it because it's going to be some sort of like the future Facebook Oasis ecosystem where you're going to have to buy pants and T-shirts that are only available through those means? That's another means to get there. But you're right. I guess you buy it for different reasons. Some more practical, some just because you want to.
It's great for artists because it's a whole new market, right? I mean,
right.
Musicians have not been touring, et cetera, et cetera. Even Burning Man artists who, are working in a physical realm, as more and more folks are doing things in a 3D design space, if they could create digital versions of, and some of them are, versions of their things that could not only be experienced in 3D and virtual worlds, but that could also somebody could invest in. Great.
That's a great, actually, something I want to talk about a little bit is the artist is infamously known as being the broke, wayward soul in the areas. But there's these new frontiers that are opening up, augmented reality and virtual reality, these NFTs that are happening. I mean, what would you recommend to young artists that are looking to kind of like plant their flag and be able to, create a sustainable living with this? Is there any advice or recommendations you'd give to young aspiring digital artists on what to do and how to get started in the space?
Well, the good news is if they're already digital artists, they've got a leg up, at least in the modern world, because you can't really be anything, a commercial entity in this world at this point, without also being a technologist and a business person, because you're going to need websites and newsletters and or Facebook pages. And, unless you have somebody do it for you, and that's, you have to get to a certain genre of, a certain level of experience. I mean, I think definitely anybody who's creating any kind of art these days, either brands or individual artists or things like that, that investing in learning how to also have 3D assets is really huge, because as more and more and more of 3D things are coming online, be it, projection walls or virtual worlds or augmented things, the ability to have things that you can work with in a 3D space, and be prepared to have a presence there, I think is key. I mean, I saw something today like Shutterstock bought Turbo Squid, right? This is like a couple months ago. I think this was a couple months ago. And I was like, yeah, that's a smart move, right? Yeah. Because turns out there's all these marketplaces with 3D assets in the world. And as we're building and using effects and things like that, the technology is no longer flat. So if you've been drawing beautiful digital sketches this way, is there a way to turn it into something that people can experience in a 3D way in various formats? Because you're going to get more of an experiential connection if they can walk through your psychedelic weirdness as well as see it on a screen, and then possibly have more places to expose it and share it with the world. And what a cool format to work in. So the world is not flat, is my advice.
That's great. And just Shutterstock is a photo place where you can buy different types of photos that are standard stocks. And then Turbo Squid is a 3D modeling website where you can buy a whole bunch of 3D models from. I've bought things like that. I've actually had them. I think I've had them sponsor hackathons back in the day for just getting 3D content out there. And so the suggestion being is to, build your own kind of online digital 2D/3D portfolio of materials that you can reuse and rehash, because later on you might find another purpose, for that peacock unicorn that you created, and be able to bring it into another reality, maybe rig it and be able to put some animations behind it and then go ride that through some sort of a landscape. So
yeah, or somebody might buy it to put it into an augmented reality thing, and it could be, squirting out of the back of somebody's iPhone as part of an experience or something like that. The advice is to get ready for the 3D world, and to learn to be as comfortable in that as you are in some of the 2D spaces.
What's your hope, either with the companies you're a part of, the boards you're on, or things like, what is your hope for this immersive technology? If you could, what is your holy grail for this digital new landscape coming up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's interestingly, it's similar to what drew me to Burning Man, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, I'm very inspired to create experiences, containers, events, content that, bring awe and wonder to people, and that give them permission, to be bigger and brighter versions of themselves. And sometimes you might do that by inviting them to a virtual world where they can create, or they can fly, or they can be an avatar with a goofy thing. And sometimes you might do that by creating a space where they can have that moment of awe, and they can connect with the divine creativity, that exists within all of us, that around us, and that hopefully they can be touched in a way that makes them want to generate themselves and generate the world around them, in a thoughtful and colorful and creative way. So that's a long way of saying I want to make cool stuff that makes people want to be cool people and do cool things and make cool stuff, but with a whole spiritual stuff woven through there, right?
I get the intention. I totally agree with it. There is the yes, and I know we still use the word cool, and I use it all the time. But it's a beautiful thing. You want to make things that you love, that you enjoy, that inspire other people to be better, and then along the way there's the transformative effect, and it's the Burning Man culture is like, look what I built. Come through my experience. How do you feel now? Do you want to go talk to God in this phone booth? Like, there's so many things. There's so many things that we can create, and I think with this, you're right, with this new digital landscape that's coming online, you can really kind of claim any place, any flag, and really kind of make a world your own to show people.
Yeah, and the one thing I would tweak on yours is not necessarily making people better, because who's to say what's better, but making people freer within the constructs of be a good human, don't be violent, no bias, and don't be racist, but other than that, to really free people to express themselves.
Giving people permission to express
Yeah.
themselves is huge, and it's
Yeah.
incredibly difficult because there's so much fear around the I am not insert thing. And it's a really big challenge. You're right. It's not saying you must be better. You yourself is not good enough. It's like, well, what do you want? Because we all want certain things, but we all like our struggle to do it by ourselves. Why don't we go out by ourselves for a week with a Vipassana and just sit quietly amongst ourselves? Why do we go to Burning Man and go and do this? Because in some way, shape, or form, the community helps us be more us, and that is the power of the Burning Man culture. And also, if done correctly, you can do it in other spaces as well.
Yeah, there's something poetic about these places and experiences and the technology that let us tap into our power of creativity. And I think so much of the world has us have to compromise so that, we got to check the boxes, do the taxes, those things. And so when we can create those spaces and celebrate them, and where we can create pockets for ourselves to truly be free, right? If you wanted to go create, something that, maybe only you liked, but it was really therapeutic and really great for you to like do those sketches or do those things, and that tapped you in with your own creative powers and your own delight, then I want to enable that. Yeah. And I want to enable in every space, place, and tool that we can.
I think it's beautiful. And I had a lesson years ago. Then I have a question for you, and we'll start to wrap this up. So years ago, I went to Peru on this, we'll call it a spiritual journey, right? Did some time there. And I actually visited this tribe on Thanksgiving, and we brought a whole bunch of like chocolates and candies and other things to give to them. And we're like, oh, hey, here you go, everybody. Felt a little bit like Oprah. You get a bag of Skittles. You get a bag of Skittles. But the one thing that I noticed that they jumped at, they fought over, but they just reached and went for it. It wasn't the candies. It wasn't sweets. It was pencils and notepads. Like that was the thing that they would just give it to me. And I realized that above just pleasure, like there is a need for creativity. There is a innate, you could be in the jungles of the Amazon, next to the Mallorca River. And it is crazy to see the need for that creativity and to see that. And it's just, it was just their own personal desire. With that, my question is this: what rituals, activities, systems, sequences, things do you do to get into a creative mindset? How do you give yourself permission to express yourself? Because it is being creative is a vulnerable activity. Do you have any other rituals or daily activities that you do, or any advice you'd give on the topic of helping someone express their self with creativity?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that I think first that creativity is our most intrinsic quality. I mean, we are creatures that have been created from something, right? I mean, what a miracle and a mess this is. But but some divine potentiality created us, and so when we create, we are tapping into our own divine nature. I'll keep it simple there because that's an entire other podcast. Yeah. So I think everyone has a creative angle. I think everyone has a creative talent. I can't draw, or the darn, and things like that. So it's not about like, oh, I have to do everything perfectly. It's that the act of creating as it flows through us is incredibly healing. And I think it's an incredibly core part of our nature. Now, I personally, I'm very creative. So part of my challenge is I have all these visions and all these things, and they take time and resources and glue and, and tools and things to make. So I have to kind of, rein it in and which ones do I need to, sometimes I'll just draw them to get them out of my head, and then I don't actually have to make them. But it's important to do things like go offline, go out in nature, instead of, again, like that there's no straight lines, like instead of like really working so hard on a problem or an idea, put it to the side and get some fresh air, get some fresh brain space, go, take care of your body, do everything that's not about just ruminating on that, and see what emerges. And, you've got to just practice. Like, it's a yogic tradition, to do things like just doodle, or sketch in a book without attachment. Like, it's the more you start doing things, just little pockets of it, even if it's just doodling on the subway on the way to work, whenever we do that again. Finding those little pockets and giving yourself permission to not be goal oriented or driven, or to have to do something perfectly, and to not be attached to it is key. And then you'll start to learn to trust it, and maybe something interesting will come up. And also, when you're making things, like, the mistakes are where things get interesting. That's where you make another patch or another layer, or you put another coat of something on it, and things like that. So it's important to remember that, like, the process needs to be joyful, and it's never going to turn out like you thought it was. And it can just be, you can just play and be unattached, and be surprised at what emerges, because it could be really cool. And then we could buy a digital version of it someday.
Yeah, bake some love and joy into it, and then make it available to your Patreon accounts with some MFT.
And make sure to 3D model that shit too.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Heather, this has been awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before you tell people how they can get a hold of you or what they do?
I mean, I'll just say, get ready, because it's super exciting. There's so much cool technology coming in the world. And also, as we come back out of our homes, the roaring 2020s, people are going to want to come out and play and dance and delight. And I want everybody to do all that as much as they can. And then in terms of getting in touch with me part, I'm just going to say, we're going to have a chance to play again soon, and everybody should play. I'll write you a note. If you need a permission slip, I'll write you a note. And then getting in touch with me, I am literally about to finish my website this or next week. So those folks who are watching live might not, don't go look for this right now, but hopefully in a week or so, it'll be at heathergallagher.me.
heathergallagher.me.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for your time. This has been an honor and a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you either in the playa or in the digital wilds online.
All of that.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening.